The Mist wasn't just another monster movie, it was a trap disguised as survival horror. When it rolled into theaters in 2007, audiences expected creatures and chaos. What they got was one of the bleakest endings in modern cinema, a psychological descent that didn't stop at the credits. Frank Darabont, the man behind The Shawshank Redemption, turned Stephen King's novella into pure existential dread. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in The Mist. Number 1. The movie opens with David Drayton painting a mural in his lakeside studio, and it's not random decoration. Look closely at the canvas. You'll see imagery pulled directly from The Thing, the Dark Tower, and The Mist itself. Monsters lurking in fog, towers collapsing into darkness, faces twisted in terror. It's a visual prophecy, a roadmap to the nightmare David is about to live. Darabont confirmed this was deliberate. He wanted the audience to see David's subconscious bleeding into reality, art becoming horror before The Mist even arrives. The painting isn't just backstory, it's a warning no one notices until it's too late. Stephen King himself appeared as one of the figures in the original concept art, though it was painted over before the final cut. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's outside, it's what you've already imagined. Number 2, the supermarket isn't just a setting, it's a microcosm of society breaking down aisle by aisle. Darabont designed the layout intentionally, each section representing different human instincts. The front registers symbolize order and routine, the pharmacy represents healing and hope, the back stockroom becomes control and power, and as the mist thickens outside, the shelves inside transform into battlegrounds for sanity. People retreat into what they know, canned goods, bottled water, denial. The store becomes a miniature civilization collapsing in real time. Darabont said he studied how people behave in disasters, the way they cluster, the way they fragment, and he built the supermarket to mirror that psychological geography. Production designer Gregory Melton walked the aisles dozens of times, mapping how fear would spread from section to section. Every aisle has meaning, every corner holds a different kind of fear. Number 3. Filming took place inside a functioning supermarket in Shreveport, Louisiana. Production transformed it overnight, rigging lights, blocking windows, building false walls. They shot scenes while the store was closed, then dismantled everything by dawn so customers could shop the next day. The crew worked in shifts, racing against the clock. Actors rehearsed in parking lots between takes, and by the end of the shoot, the store owners said customers kept asking if they'd seen anything weird in The Mist lately. The location wasn't chosen for convenience. Darabont wanted authenticity, real shelves, real products, real fluorescent lighting. He believed the horror would feel sharper if the setting was completely ordinary. Store employees were hired as extras, adding an uncanny familiarity to the background faces. And he was right. The supermarket doesn't feel like a set, it feels like the one down the street. Number 4. The film's monsters weren't modeled after traditional aliens or demons. They were inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horrors and early concept art from Silent Hill. Darabont wanted them to feel unknowable, not creatures from another planet, but something in between dimensions. He told the effects team one directive: design something humans were never meant to see. The tentacles aren't just appendages, they're organic and mechanical at once. The insects have too many eyes, too many wings, and the final behemoth, the massive creature that walks across the highway, was designed to dwarf comprehension. Production notes describe it as a living monument to the unknown. Artist Bernie Wrightson, known for his nightmarish illustrations, contributed early sketches that became the foundation for several creatures. Because in The Mist, the monsters aren't the point, they're proof that reality itself has fractured. Number 5. Darabont didn't want polished Hollywood cinematography. He wanted chaos that felt real, so he used handheld cameras and natural lighting throughout the entire shoot. He borrowed techniques from The Shield, hiring the same TV crew that made that series feel raw and immediate. Cameras followed actors instead of leading them. Lighting was minimal, often just practical bulbs from the supermarket ceiling, and the result is a film that feels like a survival broadcast from inside the apocalypse. No smooth dolly shots, no perfect framing, just panic, confusion, and fear captured in motion. Darabont said he wanted viewers to feel like they were trapped in the store alongside the characters. Cinematographer Ron Schmidt used lightweight rigs to move through crowds like a news cameraman covering a riot, and the documentary style made that possible, because sometimes the scariest footage is the kind that looks real. Number 6. Unlike most modern horror, the fog wasn't CGI, it was real mist generated on set using industrial fog machines. The crew pumped out hundreds of gallons of fog juice per day, thick clouds of glycerin-based vapor that filled the supermarket and parking lot. Actors couldn't see more than a few feet ahead during outdoor scenes. Some complained about breathing issues. Others said it felt genuinely disorienting. Darabont said, "By day 3, no one could smell anything but fear and glycerin. The practical mist added weight to every shot, a tangible presence the actors could react to. Special effects supervisor Everett Burrell stationed fog machines every 20 feet to maintain consistent density throughout takes. And it shows on screen. The fog doesn't drift. It presses in like something alive." Number 7. Mrs. Carmody's Fanaticism wasn't just great acting. It was modeled after a real televangelist Frank Darabont saw on late-night TV in the early 2000s. He never named the preacher publicly, but described them as a doomsday prophet shouting about the end of the world and divine punishment. Darabont studied their tone, cadence, and crowd manipulation techniques to shape Carmody's terrifying sermons. He watched how they built fear, then offered salvation, how they isolated dissenters, how they turned panic into power. That's why her breakdown of society feels so believable. It wasn't born from fiction, it was born from real-world fanaticism. Actress Marcia Gay Harden took that research and turned Carmody into one of horror's most disturbing villains. She reportedly watched hours of sermon footage and religious rallies to perfect the character's rhythmic escalation. Not because she's supernatural, because she's human. Number 8. Early screenings featured a longer, gorier version of the first attack. When the tentacles dragged the bag boy into the mist, the original cut showed more of what happened to him. Skin tearing, bones snapping, blood spraying across the loading dock. Audiences reportedly looked away or even left the theater. Some complained it was too graphic, others said it made them physically ill. So Darabont trimmed it down, pulling back just enough to let imagination fill the gaps. And he was right. What you don't see in the mist became scarier than what you do. The sound design stayed brutal, screams echoing through fog, but the visuals, they became suggestions. Shadows moving just out of frame, because sometimes the mind creates worse monsters than any special effect. Number 9. Frank Darabont threw out traditional storyboards and let the film unfold more organically than most productions. He told his cameramen to chase the chaos and actors to react naturally instead of sticking to strict blocking. Scenes were rehearsed but not locked down. Dialogue was scripted but delivery was flexible. The result was raw and unpredictable. A movie that feels like it's happening in real time. Actors genuinely didn't know when creatures would appear in certain shots. Sound effects were triggered live to capture authentic fear. And the panic you see on screen, a lot of it is real surprise. Darabont said he wanted the film to feel alive, unstable, dangerous. Actor Thomas Jane later described the process as controlled chaos where no one felt completely safe, and by loosening his grip on control, he found it. Number 10. The military patches on the soldiers' uniforms read Arrowhead Project, referring to the secret government experiment that caused the mist. That name never appears in dialogue. It's only visible if you pause the movie and look closely at their gear. It's one of the only pieces of proof connecting this disaster to human error, a government project that tore a hole in reality. In Stephen King's novella, the Arrowhead Project is explicitly mentioned, but Darabont buried it as a visual Easter egg instead. He wanted viewers to discover it themselves, to realize that the monsters weren't random, they were summoned. The costume department created multiple patch variations before settling on the design that would be barely visible but still readable on freeze frame. And somewhere in a bunker, someone knew exactly what they'd done. Number 11. Darabont's original budget was slashed from $40 million to $18 million before filming began. Studio executives panicked about the dark tone and uncertain commercial appeal. They wanted cuts everywhere. Fewer effects, shorter shoot, smaller cast. Darabont agreed to the budget reduction on one condition: complete creative control, no studio notes, no test screening compromises, no forced happy ending, and they said yes. It's why The Mist feels smaller and grittier than most horror blockbusters. The budget showed Darabont how to make limitations into strengths, practical effects instead of CGI, real locations instead of sound stages, handheld chaos instead of polished cinematography. He later said the budget cut was the best thing that could have happened because it forced authentic choices over expensive spectacle, and in the end, the film became more personal, more intense, because it had less money to hide behind. Number 12. While King doesn't appear in person, his novels fill the background shelves of the supermarket. There's even a copy of Skeleton Crew, the book that originally contained the Mist novella. It's a sly Easter egg that turns King's universe into a self-referential maze. Darabont scattered other King titles throughout the store, visible in quick pans, or blurred in the background. It's a quiet reminder that in King's world, every story connects, every town holds secrets, and the horrors in one book might bleed into another. The Mist isn't just a standalone nightmare, it's part of a larger, darker mythology. Sharp-eyed viewers have spotted at least 7 different King book covers strategically placed on the magazine rack near the checkout lanes. Darabont later admitted he included titles from stories he personally wanted to adapt but never got the chance. Number 13. Despite its scope, the entire film was completed in just over a month. Darabont ran the shoot like a military operation, fast, efficient, relentless. He scheduled scenes back to back, often shooting day and night to maximize the location. Actors worked 6-day weeks, the crew slept in shifts, and mistakes weren't an option because there was no time to fix them. Darabont said, "The chaos on screen matched the chaos off it. The compressed timeline forced everyone to stay sharp, to trust instincts, to move fast, and that urgency bled into the film's DNA. Every scene feels immediate. Every moment feels like it could fall apart." First, assistant director Mark Vargo later admitted he'd never worked a schedule that demanding in his entire career. Some crew members compared the experience to shooting a war film in real time, complete with the exhaustion and adrenaline. Number 14. When the rescue truck appears in the finale, it's covered in imagery from earlier scenes, flags, posters, and even survivors from the supermarket. It symbolizes salvation arriving seconds too late. Every detail in that truck was intentionally placed to twist the knife deeper. Darabont wanted viewers to see familiar faces, to recognize people who survived because they didn't give up. The military convoy wasn't a miracle. It was proof that waiting would have saved them, and David's decision, the most devastating choice in modern horror, becomes unbearable in hindsight because the truck doesn't just rescue survivors, it exposes the tragedy of impatience. Production designer Gregory Melton spent days selecting which specific background characters would appear in the convoy to maximize the emotional gut punch. Number 15. If you look closely during the rescue scene, you can spot several characters from earlier in the film. The store clerk, a few unnamed shoppers, people who stayed, who waited, who survived. Darabont confirmed this was deliberate to show that survival was possible if they just held on a little longer. It turns the film's ending from tragedy into irony. David and his group weren't doomed by the mist. They were doomed by fear, and the people who made it out weren't braver. They were just more patient. That realization is what makes the final scene so brutal, because it wasn't fate, it was timing. Actor Jeffrey DeMunn, who played Dan Miller, later said discovering this detail made him appreciate the ending's cruelty even more. Number 16. Both films feature characters from the fictional town of Castle Rock, Maine, and the grocery store manager in The Mist mentions Shawshank Redemption by name during a conversation. It's a quiet reminder that in King's world, even the smallest towns hold unimaginable horrors. Darabont loved weaving King's mythology together, connecting stories through geography and references. Castle Rock appears in multiple King novels, a cursed town where normal life sits inches away from nightmare. And by linking The Mist to Shawshank, Darabont suggests that hope and horror exist in the same universe. Sometimes you escape, sometimes you don't. The reference comes during a throwaway line about that prison up north, easily missed but deliberately planted. 3 actors from Shawshank appear in The Mist, creating an unofficial repertory company across Darabont's King adaptations. Number 17. Darabont encouraged real chaos during crowd scenes. He told extras to shout over each other, panic, and argue freely. No scripted lines, no choreographed movements, just genuine human disorder. It created the disorganized, frantic realism that makes the supermarket feel alive. People don't behave logically during disasters. They yell, they contradict themselves, they grab at anything familiar, and by letting the background actors react naturally, Darabont captured that authentic breakdown. The supermarket doesn't feel like a movie set, it feels like a place where people are genuinely losing control. Several extras were recruited from local community theater groups specifically because of their ability to improvise under pressure. Sound mixers later said they captured over 40 hours of usable background dialogue, most of it completely unscripted. Number 18. Darabont said he'd read an account of soldiers stranded during a mission who nearly made the same tragic decision as the film's characters. Isolated, hopeless, running out of options. They debated ending it before something worse happened, but they waited and rescue came. Darabont used that story to ground the ending in emotional truth. It wasn't just horror, it was human despair weaponized. The decision David makes isn't insane, it's logical, and that's what makes it devastating, because in that moment, giving up felt like mercy. He never identified the specific military incident publicly, but said it haunted him for years before finding its way into the script. Stephen King himself called Darabont's ending superior to his own, a rare admission from an author about an adaptation. Number 19. When the last creature walks across the road, only its legs are visible, but the full design shows it standing over 200 feet tall. It's It's the same species mentioned in The Dark Tower, known as a behemoth, meaning the mist might just be another doorway into King's connected multiverse. The creature's scale was intentional. Darabont wanted something so massive it defied comprehension, a reminder that humans were never meant to survive this, and by showing only a glimpse, he made it more terrifying, because you never see the whole monster, you just see what it's stepping over. Concept artist Drew Struzan created the full creature design, though only a fraction appears in the final film. The production team built a forced perspective leg prop that stood 3 stories tall for the practical portion of the shot. Number 20. Darabont refused to reveal the final scene to the cast until the day of filming. The actors knew the broad strokes, but not the specifics, and when they finally shot it, the reactions were real. Thomas Jane said he broke down after the take. The crew was reportedly silent for several minutes after cut. No one spoke, no one moved, because what they'd just witnessed wasn't acting anymore, it was grief. Darabont later said that silence confirmed he'd made the right choice. The ending wasn't just shocking, it was devastating, and everyone on set felt it. Thomas Jane admitted in later interviews he needed therapy to process the emotional weight of that performance. The script pages for the final scene were printed on red paper and collected immediately after filming to prevent leaks. The Mist wasn't just a horror movie, it was a nightmare about human nature and the thin line between fear and faith. Every frame was built like a warning. The monsters outside aren't half as dangerous as the ones inside. Darabont turned a novella into one of the bleakest films ever made, a story where survival isn't enough if you lose yourself along the way. The supermarket became a microcosm, the creatures became proof, and the ending became unforgettable because it dared to say what most films won't. Sometimes hope arrives too late, and sometimes the real horror is living with what you've done.